Yo people, what's up? This is MalcolmXtreme, the content machine, coming at you with another video today. Another reaction video from Cash Jordan. 65,000 NYC migrants just became homeless. Very unfortunate situation. Before we start, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for more notifications from the content machine. MalcolmXtreme. We're gonna try to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I'm gonna be grinding hard. So I hope you guys stick around and keep enjoying my reactions. So let's get started.
With new waves of asylum seekers arriving weekly, the city is evicting migrants from shelters to make room for new families.
These are single adults who've been in the system for 30 days and have not been able to prove that they faced extenuating.
Man, New York City's asylum crisis continues to grow, and every single week
it's a real shit show.
From the southern border looking for a place to stay. But since the city's shelters are full, the only way to house new people is to kick out the current people, which means that to solve homelessness, the city's gonna make
you're gonna have to cause homelessness.
What a plan.
With more than 65,000 migrants.
Yo man, isn't that crazy that New York City backed itself into a corner so badly that everything is just becoming completely unsustainable? And it has to have an effect on like not only the migrants that are going there, but it's just effect on the people overall. Like imagine living in this situation, in this city, in this situation, man. It's crazy.
In the city shelter system, the city says it can no longer indefinitely house and feed these migrants.
It worries me not knowing where I will go with my kids, especially because I have 3 small children.
See, that's another thing. Like people bring their kids there too. Now you have homeless kids, bro.
We've got trash, we've got the constant noise. I mean, it's like Times Square when you come out of your home.
The evictions today are part of a new policy that allow migrants to claim a shelter bed for only 30 or 60 days.
The advocates say they are
30 or 60 days.
that this will lead to an uptick.
You know what? That's not enough time, man. Like, if you're gonna have like immigration policies like this, where you allow people in other countries with limited documentation or just limited paperwork in general, you have to have a better system. Like 30 days to get your shit together is not enough. 60 days to get your shit together is not enough. Like there has to be a better process than this.
In street homelessness.
We are connecting them to resources and we are talking to them about what those next steps are.
A lot of people inside shelter, if they just went out on the street, they're gonna cause a lot of problems.
Migrants can receive an extension and stay longer than 30 days if they can demonstrate that they have extenuating circumstances.
There is so many people that with all the will in the world, we can't help them.
So New York City's tough new shelter rules just kicked in, meaning thousands of people will soon be evicted. But what nobody's talking about is that on the one hand, the city is telling everyone to leave, but on the other hand, they're telling everyone that they can stay as long as they've got a valid reason, which has people lining up to try and game the system according to critics.
Yeah.
The sad truth is many people who came here by bus and enrolled.
That's another thing. Like the people who come in, they're like taking advantage of like all the resources and the system itself. And that just takes away from like everyone else's resources. Like there's a limited amount of resources, but if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming into the city, like all those resources are just getting sucked up. Like this hurts everybody. Doesn't benefit anyone.
To education and most importantly, assistance finding a job. But if you ask the people who are in line right now with no job trying to get a place to stay, they'll tell you it didn't work out that way. Yet the process of getting a work permit is up to the federal government, and right now all over town you've got local groups protesting the fact that people are here who can't do anything. But if you think caring for 65,000 people who've been lied to sounds like a problem, things are about to get even worse for the city, because all over town you've got local advocacy groups upset that shelters in their neighborhoods exist. Residents are complaining that the shelters bring disruptions to their neighborhoods and occupy valuable public resources. And that exposes the real reason why we have an asylum crisis here that looks the way that it does. Because recent polling indicates 80% of New Yorkers are in favor of right to shelter. Yet for some reason, every time the city tries to set up a shelter in a various neighborhood, that's always the wrong location. It's always either inhumane or unsafe, or it's just the wrong place.
You know, it's very funny because like everybody wants it until like it's in their neighborhood. Everybody wants like these people. They want a shelter. They want to hug these people. They want to welcome these people in. But when it's in their neighborhood and it's taking all their resources, they're like, nah, I didn't mean here. I meant like somewhere over there, you know?
And at the same time, residents are furious with the city that the people in those same shelters can't earn a living and provide for themselves. Yet that is a federal issue. That's not something the mayor has any control over, which means New Yorkers may be ignorant of the ramifications of policies they say they're in favor of. Because even though the mayor wants to, he can't.
Yeah, it's like ignorance.
On top of that, even though it looks like the city's new policy of evicting everybody after as little as 30 days is designed to bring this crisis to an end, there are so many holes in this new system of evictions that critics say it's going to make the asylum crisis drag out longer. While at the exact same time, bus after bus from the southern border continues to arrive, bringing thousands of people who need a place to stay. And some people say,
like the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, He really wasn't joking about like just busing immigrants to New York, man. He really wasn't joking about that. He absolutely did what he said he was gonna do, and like, hey, they have to take him, right? There's the other sanctuary cities that he's been sending them to, right? So it's not just New York that's getting the hammer right now. It's other cities. I think Chicago is one of them. Is Chicago a sanctuary city? I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know any other sanctuary cities in the country aside from those that are just getting hit up.
This new plan of evictions combined with all of the new arrivals is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, 1,300 migrants arrived in New York City last week. Beginning Wednesday, the city started evicting migrants from shelters under a new policy that limits the amount of time and
the right to shelter.
a bed. Let's bring in CBS News.
So here we are inside the bus terminal where folks arrive from the southern border, but we can't have a crisis here in New York City unless there's another bigger crisis off in the distance somewhere south of here. And that is exactly the current situation. We have 3,700 people a day cross the southern border, and every week you have around 1,300 people on average arriving here in the city. And by the way, that's just the official number of people that the city knows have arrived who've gone through its various intake and processing centers. Anybody who comes here and doesn't go through the official way to get housing, the city may not know they exist, which makes it pretty hard to manage shelter.
Yo, and that's another thing, like, you got so many people coming in, like, how do you keep track of everybody? Like, honestly, like, the government works so sloppily, is that a word? All the time, like, how do you even expect them to organize or manage all these people coming in? You, like, really can't. And that's, like, a security issue, too, because you could be letting a complete psychopath into the country. Like, out of 1,300, 1,600 people, they're, like, somebody's got to be a serial killer or something. Someone's got to be, like, a drug dealer. Like, undoubtedly. And that's the truth, though.
Shelter bed capacity if you don't have any firm idea of who may need a place to stay and who may not. Which is why the city shelters are completely maxed out right now and they're telling people to leave. And what's crazy about that is it means the same rules that were designed to stop people from being homeless are now the reason people are homeless.
Oh my God.
Door operation that critics say helps nobody.
So here's the thing, the New York City
it's just not beneficial for anybody.
So they've decided on a new policy that allows them to limit the stay for adult males and adult families with no children to 30 days. And the reason for it is that they're hoping to be able to move about 15,000 people out of shelter and into
so adults without children is 30, adults with children is 60.
The city claims it doesn't want to kick people out, which makes sense to me, but this idea that everyone is transitioning to permanent housing, or at least a majority are, that's being disputed.
No, nah.
The evictions themselves,
that ain't happening, man.
Space, but they also do something else. And the fascinating thing about them is that most of the people who get kicked out don't come back. Almost half the families who've been evicted from shelters haven't returned, and families can reapply as often as they want. They're not banned from getting another shot. And that means the real number of evictions for single adults is likely higher because they don't have kids in school. It's easier for them to pack up and leave and go wherever they want. And they
You know what also could be a problem with this is that, like, there's so many people going into New York, like, they could just spread out to, like, different parts of the country, you know? They could spread out to different parts of the country and not even be, documented. Which they aren't, because they're technically still legal immigrants, right? I mean, we can say they're migrants all day, but they're still illegal if they're not documented in any capacity.
They aren't eligible for the prepaid debit cards that help with nutrition assistance. And as bad as this sounds, when the asylum crisis first started, the mayor actually tried to cancel right to shelter, but he was blocked. Had he been able to block right to shelter, the people already in the shelter system probably would have gotten to stay for a lot longer than 30 days. Yet the mayor was unsuccessful in his efforts, and over the preceding 9 months, he had to negotiate with local activists who were calling for the city to maintain an unlimited right to shelter policy that would apply to everybody, even if the city was tapped out as far as resources go. And now we've got a situation that kicks people out of the shelters before they've done their job, which is supposed to be to prepare people to enter society as contributing members of it.
What are the concerns right now that this could lead to an increase in homelessness in the city?
We see in terms of the 30.
Yo, all of this is so freaking frustrating, bro. Like, all of this is frustrating. Like, if there were better immigration policies, like, at this time, people would have a lot more resources for themselves. Like, the New York people need all these resources for themselves. I personally feel like there's no reason, like, all this money should be for people outside of the country, man. Like, it's kind of frustrating just thinking about it, man.
policy, you can have extenuating circumstances. So, for example, if you've had a major...
Then we wouldn't be having these conversations, right? We wouldn't have these arguments.
As long as they have a valid excuse, what exactly is going on here? Because this article right here reveals that most people are getting approved for an extension if they want one. In fact, out of the 190 people who requested an extension, 119 got one, which is a 60% reapplication acceptance rate. And this brings up a few questions that nobody really has any good answers to. For example, how much vetting does the city do? Are they checking people's leases? Are they contacting people's landlords? Are they talking to doctors to see if the medical appointments are verified? And if the city's willing to let a good number of people stay in the shelters if they want, why do they have a system that forces people to wait in the hot sun or in the rain potentially to beg for another placement? Has the city created a program that is deliberately inconvenient or one that rewards possible deception? The sad reality is most likely that the
and that's another thing, man.
For you to get replaced in a shelter,
waiting for everything.
Enough of this, I am just gonna leave town, which is somewhat ironic because this is America's largest sanctuary city, and as an immigrant, you'd expect there to be more sympathy for your cause here than anywhere else. Yet that's not necessarily the case, and nowhere is that more.
Yo, I forgot that New York is the largest sanctuary city, isn't it? It's like where every people just advocates for people all around the world, all the migrants and stuff to just come and live and make a life for themselves and shit, right? Like I said, I gotta figure out what other places are sanctuary cities.
More obvious and more true than in areas of town where the city has been able to set up shelters that are successful by its standards, yet local residents are furious that the shelters are still there, and they're not exactly hiding it. So here we are on Hall Street at the city's largest shelter for asylum seekers that is not a gigantic tent in a field somewhere. These facilities that you see behind me, you have one shelter that is designed for families and another down the street that is designed for single adults. This article actually says almost 4,000 people live in these two buildings. And what's crazy is that even though 80% of New Yorkers say they're in favor of right to shelter, residents here want these two facilities shut down, or at least they want more resources.
Why? Why would you want that?
Complaints are that these shelters are too large for the infrastructure that's here already.
A new plea to the city for more resources.
The shelters are too large? I don't understand.
So when you hear the word more resources, that's residents saying that there's a problem and the city needs to fix it somehow. Either by spending money in some capacity to make it so that the resources that are here are more plentiful, or by controversially removing the resources that are here so that everything disappears. And even though
you just don't have enough resources.
With the presence of this particular facility, if
you just don't have enough. That's the thing.
That was going to house a lot of people. This is a pretty good spot for it. It's in an out-of-the-way location. It's literally next to an expressway. Across the street, you have cars parked under a bridge, and the building itself used to be a former mixed-use space, commercial, industrial. But what's unbelievable is how many local residents have a problem with the existence of this facility. This is like the only location, yet here we got a packed town hall.
That's kind of strange. No, I'm kind of confused with like some of the people in New York. Like, didn't you vote for this? Didn't you want this? Isn't this what you like advocated for? And now you have like a problem with it? I mean, the shelter, the building is right there. It's built for what it was designed to be for, the shelter, right? So what's the problem? What's the problem? Is this what you want? You know, there's like a how you say, there's a limitation to where I would like expect, you know, would have like sympathy for a certain populace and then like be like, hey, this is what you wanted, right? So I'm confused.
Outside on a warm spring night, neighbors say the influx of migrants in Clinton Hill is overwhelming.
It's unfair on them, it's unfair on us. We've got trash, we've got the constant noise. I mean, it's like Times Square when you come out of your home.
There are two shelters.
Did you hear that? Neighbors are saying that this shelter is unfair to the people who've decided to move in. Now, definitely a system that evicts people after 30 days is not a fair system. However, to say that the facility is overcrowded when it meets the city's standards for how many people can live somewhere, that makes it look like residents are searching for reasons for why the shelter needs to go. And perhaps the asylum
like, I don't understand that.
This is the best place for them. They've traveled very far to come here, and many who go to the reapplication facility want to stay if they can.
I mean, that's a huge place too.
The presence of the shelter in this neighborhood, and neither can the asylum seekers. And they're saying people don't deserve to live in a room that has several hundred beds in it. They're saying it's not the asylum seekers. We just need a new paradigm.
Oh, I see.
Go about dealing with
I see.
This. That's what they're saying, but the city.
So this is the thing I'm not getting. Like, okay, that building is huge, but like, I guess one hall has like 100 beds. Is that what he said? One hall has 100 beds. So how many people live in this one building alone? Like, if the city could provide for everybody that's in this particular shelter, then they could stay there, right?
had to build this place in line with fire code and in line with its other regulations, and the people saying that these are millionaires living in condos around here, or at least people that are able to pay several $1,000s a month in rent and earn a living in this economy. It's a different standard that they have. And what's interesting about these comments is you don't hear them about the city's other shelter system, which is technically separate than the one for asylum seekers, which houses people who are New Yorkers. No one's saying that their conditions are inhumane, yet it's the same design.
There are two
Yeah.
shelters nearby that
Yeah,
house
that's the thing.
individuals and families.
Trying to support the people who've come to this neighborhood with clothes, food, and all that.
If
kind
they're
of
all
stuff.
the same, then why are you complaining about this particular building?
Everyone in the world, we can't help them. We need something bigger here.
Neighbors posted.
Now, as someone who lives here and has been covering this for quite a while, it's hard to understand exactly where people are coming from. And what do they mean that they need something bigger here? This place is already massive. Maybe they want
Yeah, that's what I was
more
saying.
resources than it already is. However, New York's already a top destination for asylum seekers, and that's certainly not for a lack of generosity. The safety net here is already incredible. New York's got caseworkers lined up to help people as soon as they get here. There's clothing, there's food, there's medical resources, there's education for dependents like children. But perhaps the real issue here is that people think that these shelters are just too big for this neighborhood. They may have not expected that a shelter this big would end up here. The local news.
Yo, there's buildings everywhere.
The residents were concerned about the exact size of.
Yo, this is what I'm saying. Like, certain people are just finicky, bro. Like, certain people are just finicky. They want something, they have it right there, and then now they're against it because it's in their neighborhood. Yeah, man, I don't know, man.
Although many people in New York may say that they support the city's right to shelter, nobody really wants to be the first to offer that support or to be the recipient of that support, especially in this part of town, apparently.
That's crazy. Careful what you wish for.
Okay, so here we are in Clinton Hill. This is the neighborhood where the shelters exist. They are a few blocks away, again, on the other side of that highway, and this looks and feels how it always has looked, which might make it look like the residents who say that they have a problem with how things are being handled are blowing things up out of proportion. At the same time, none of us
would
here
seem
knows
that way.
First-hand experience. We can only go by what the news tells us, and with what we see, which is one of the nicest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. But as you're about to see, that might be part of the problem.
Meanwhile, neighbors say they're doing what they can.
We're happy to help people. Like, we really are. Like, we take trash pickup. We've got the migrants to help
Yeah,
us
sure,
with the
yeah,
trash
sure.
pickup. They want to work.
Some are upset at their current
So as a humble observer of this situation, what it looks like we're witnessing here is a misunderstanding of how U.S. immigration law actually works and what responsibilities the city, the state, and the federal government have.
Everybody's getting mixed up.
Shelters residents need to understand money is being spent so people can claim asylum. This is a technical term, and somebody claiming asylum fears persecution or harm in their home country, which is why they don't want to return. And the people who are granted asylum are allowed to remain in the United States without fear of deportation. But what not everybody knows is that asylum is not a guaranteed right to just do whatever you want once you're here in America. And the reason you see so many people hanging out at the shelters, seemingly not doing anything, well, they are doing something. They're doing what they have to do, and that is wait for the asylum process to conclude. And right on the U.S. government's own immigration website, it talks about how work permission needs to take 150 days. And not only is this how things work today,
Damn, that's actually a good chunk of time.
Makes it somewhat surprising that people seem to have a problem with it. Unless, of course, most New Yorkers
It's like a third of a year.
understand how immigration and work authorization work together and what that process is actually like. Perhaps they're surprised that people are here with nothing to do.
The mayor's office says hundreds of migrants continue to show up every day. They tell us the city has spent more than $4 billion on the migrant crisis, and right now there are no extra funds to spend.
Yeah, I get it. People are upset with how the city's handling things at the shelter. Everybody knows that that's a bad situation, but what you may be looking at here is the result of people supporting policies they didn't fully understand at the time they supported them. That may explain why the
they
city spent
blindly
millions of dollars
supported
on the asylum crisis,
policies.
yet residents aren't really appreciative of that. They want the city to do more than it is. They want them to give out work permits, but the city can't do something like that. Which means it almost appears that just as the asylum seekers were baited and switched into enrolling in a system that wasn't actually going to help them, perhaps New Yorkers were baited and switched.
Exactly.
Representatives fully explain what was going to happen if the asylum crisis played out the way that it has.
It seemed like there was someone in office that was against all this stuff a couple of years ago. I'm not gonna get political.
The only explanation I can come up with for why
It seemed like someone in office was trying to help people understand that this was unsustainable. You know?
Wish that they were working. However, what good would work permission actually do the asylum seekers? New York City apartments are some of the most expensive in the entire country. And if you're in one of the city's shelters and right now you're working a delivery job, it might be difficult to move up the economic ladder quickly enough to secure your own New York City apartment in 30 days. This is probably why the city's granting so many extensions. They know they're asking the impossible of people who've just gotten here.
It really is impossible. Like New York is expensive enough.
Everybody who wants to start working immediately. Yes, New York's got a massive economy. You've got restaurants, you've got trucking. Every block here has hundreds of little businesses on it. But it might be that even if everybody gets a work permit today, the local economy doesn't have a position for them tomorrow. Which could mean that even with a work permit, the housing situation and the job situation don't change for many of the folks that are in the shelters right now. And the city may have to continue.
It's a literal hopeless situation. situation, man.
If you want to live up here and have your coffee down here, you're gonna need a 6-figure income. And this could mean the reason New York City's shelters keep growing, they keep signing new contracts and extending their current leases, building new facilities. This could be because city leaders are aware that this is going to continue for the foreseeable future, no matter what happens with things like work permits,
man.
those won't
It's gonna be an escape from New York situation.
More than 30 days. What do you think about that? Is New York City in a position where there's no way out of the asylum crisis? What would you do to fix it? How would you help the people who are in the shelters? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Damn, nice video, Cash. Dude, like I was saying before, man, it is absolutely unsustainable, man. I don't know what's going on down there in New York, but whatever you guys have going on with the whole sanctuary city thing, you guys need to abandon that shit. That shit is not working. It's obviously not working. And you can probably see it for yourself. I don't know, man. Let me know what you think, guys. Comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications from the content machine. MalcolmXtreme, join the 1K crew. Let's hit 1,000 subs by the end of this year, guys. Take it easy.